welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. With me today is the woman who knows how to set personal boundaries, Alex Standy. This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. And it so often happens as we're getting ready to do one of these programs. We got talking with the guest just before we got started here, and the conversation got so good that I thought, wait a minute, we got to do this during the podcast. This is important stuff. So, I see our guest is having trouble once again. Jan, maybe try doing that reboot again. Let's see if that takes care of it. Alex, you're hearing me okay, right?
Yep, I hear you fine.
Okay. So, yep, poor Jan's having trouble at her end. So I'll send her a little note to try the reboot again. There we go. So while she's taking care of that, well, first of all, Alex, you were telling me before we got started that you're feeling better and you're feeling good and you're living life again. So thank you. Congratulations. Well done.
Thank you. I'm doing what I can. Just living life one beach day at a time.
Understand completely. And Janet is having trouble hearing and she's trying to let us know, do the reboot again. Do the reboot again. She can't hear me. That's the problem. She doesn't know what I'm saying.
You're cute, but I don't know what you're saying.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Okay, she just did the reboot, so she'll be back in just a moment.
Yeah.
But, yeah, here she comes.
Okay.
All right.
Yes. Now I can hear you.
Now you can hear us. Okay.
Now
So hopefully that won't be a recurring issue, but we will deal with it if it happens. At least you know what to do. You just do a reboot.
I do.
Very simple. But anyway, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
We were chatting before we got started, and I was realizing that we had some good stuff going on, so I wanted to make sure that we actually did it during the show, because that's when we want everybody to hear what's going on. But let's just start with what you were telling Alex before we got going, because it kind of gives a really good summary of who you are, where you come from, and what you do. So just do that little summary again. It was good.
Oh, I'm the creator of Reprogram for Success, and I had found out that there are 4 techniques that you can use to reprogram any belief system, any trait, and even your thoughts from a self-limiting to a self-limitless or self-enhancing belief. And what it does is it takes you out of your left brain or your left cortex and your right cortex from fighting on something to actually bringing them into harmony and an agreement. And I found this out by my own experience and something that happened to me, and I went from energy-based healing to actually going into the science of it, quantum physics and epigenetics, and I came out with the program, Reprogram for Success.
Very cool. I love that. Yeah. And epigenetics is all by itself. That's a fun topic.
It is a great topic.
It's relatively, I mean, it's been around for a long time, but it's relatively new in terms of how widely or how narrowly it's been discussed and explored. So, but why don't we just let's just do a little basic level on it. Okay. So give us like a quick primer, so to speak, on what epigenetics is and why it's so important.
Okay. So I basically say in the broad sense of epigenetics. So if there's any scientists listening to this, I'm talking in a very broad sense.
Okay.
That epigenetics is basically the imprinting or coding that's passed down through the ancestors to your parents, and your parents pass these down to you from the time you're born to about 8 years old. After that, the imprinting is going to be from society, anything catastrophic that happens to you. And all of this dictates your behaviors, your belief systems, your thoughts, your traits, your traditions. I mean, everything that forms you is imprinted, and it's a program that runs.
And it's really kind of alarming, perhaps, at times, just how strong that programming is, in that any of us who have ever tried to do any kind of work on ourselves and found that we weren't making progress, or we made progress in some areas but not in others and didn't quite understand why. And then we started to kind of connect the dots together and realize, well, this is the same thing my parents dealt with, or this is the same thing my uncle dealt with, or my grandfather or my grandmother or something. And what's going on here? Well, this is what's going on here.
Yes, this is true. This is, well, you know, it's interesting because one of the ways that I found out about how I really examined, and it was kind of painful. It was a painful process. And for some people, it can be a painful process to see how their coding is. But I ended up at one point, I'll start out as a child. I was always the child that always wanted to help the underdog. Like I couldn't handle that happening. It was just part of me. And so through life, I ended up going through a lot of different things, a divorce and a bunch of different things. But in that, I ended up with a sum of money, and I wanted to help the underserved, both individual and nonprofit alike. I was chairman of the board of an organization that helped homeless women get a better education so their children could be helped. I did all of this. And before long, I realized people were attached to me for my money.
Sure.
And my financial advisor, who was with a well-known international institution, had made an investment outside the scope of the firm, but lost almost all my money.
Ooh,
and
wow.
in that, I ended up in arbitration. And the whole time I was in arbitration, I thought, I'm going to lose this money. I never once thought I wasn't going to win. I just kept going, I'm going to lose this money. I know I'm going to lose this money. And so that's the quantum physics, right? Because you're putting the energy out to bring that reality to you. And at the time I was so caught up in it, I couldn't see that. And so sure enough, the financial advisor got disbarred. The firm got fined. His partner got fined, but I only got 10% of what I lost. So I thought, okay, I understand the energy behind this, but what was my epigenetic coding? And that's what took me to finally understand the imprinting I had gone through. I came from 8 generations of ministers who signed up to be economically challenged, who signed up to give their last cents to the underserved, and who never really had any money to manage. And, you know, that's really honorable, and I don't want to take that away from them, but it wasn't what I signed up for.
Yeah.
And so I was on search now for what was going to untangle all of this. And so that's when I came up with neurolinguistic programming, ThetaHealing, EMI, which is eye movement integration. And then the last one is PSYCH-K. And with those, man, you can really seal in a new belief and move out the old, and the new comes in. It's pretty amazing.
So let's break those down a little bit. Those 4 pillars or 4 corners, or I'm not sure how you describe it, but the 4 main pieces of your program, because each one of them has its own stuff to it and its own take on how things work. So let's spend a minute or two on each one.
Well, neurolinguistic programming. So neuro is basically the brain and the state of the mind and brain, right? The state of the mind. And linguistics is how we speak. So only 7% is really verbal. You know, 93% is really our inflection, our hands, the way we present ourselves. And I can give a great example for people to understand this. If I asked you to help me with a fundraiser and you said yes, but your body looked like you were a deer caught in the headlights, well, 93% of you told me no, and 7% said yes. So this is a very simplistic way for people to understand how they actually communicate with each other. And through your communication, I can pick up the parts of you, whether you're coming from lack by the words you use. It also can show unconscious information that you don't even understand that you're putting out there. And there's different techniques in neurolinguistic programming that can literally move out your old behavior and move it out and then put in the new behavior. But I always follow it with PSYCH-K, and we'll get to that in a minute, because PSYCH-K crosses your left brain with your right brain and brings you into a whole brain state.
Okay, before you get there, we're getting a little bit of a fluttering sound with your microphone, and I just want to alert you to that. I'm not sure if there's anything you can do, because I know you're using an iPad in place of your laptop, because the laptop wasn't working properly before. But I'm not sure exactly what it is.
Is it okay now?
It's still every time you talk, there's like this little flutter sound, and I'm not sure exactly what's causing it. It's like it's almost like it's reacting to something, and I don't know what it would be reacting.
I would try unplugging the mic and plugging it back in.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea. See what that does. That may actually help.
How is it now?
Say something more.
Is it still there?
Yeah, it's still there.
But it's a little better.
It's a little better. Touch the screen of the iPad. See if that does anything. Just touch it.
I'm afraid to touch anything after what we went through. Right?
Yeah, no, it's still not making any difference. I don't know what's going on. That's pretty weird. You have a mic that's plugged into the iPad? Is that what it is?
I have yes, I do. I have a Nano.
Try going with the mic that's built into the iPad. Let's see what that does.
Okay. I might have to take out my headphones then. because it's my mic. My headphones are connected to my mic.
Yeah, let's give it
yeah, those connectors.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Connected to the mic. Let me just see if I unplug the mic and plug it back in and what happens.
All right, give that a shot. Because obviously we want to be able to hear her clearly without distortions or anything.
Is this better if I do it this way?
It's different. It's not better. Try to say something more.
It's not even on my mic. It's you're talking to me through my iPad.
We're still getting the flutter sound though. That's pretty interesting.
I don't know what it is then. Let me just. Okay, are you? Oh, now you're.
I can hear the quality of the mic. We get the flutter either way, but the mic itself sounds better in terms of the pure sound of the microphone. I don't know what that flutter is. That's pretty strange.
I don't know.
Are you far away from your modem or Wi-Fi source?
No, it's right in the same. It's probably 10 feet away. I'm very close. That's why I actually set up where I set up, so I'm always close to the Wi-Fi.
I don't know. Well, we may just have to live with it because neither one's really fixing it.
I'm sorry.
What else to suggest? Hell, that's technology. Stuff happens.
Yep.
It's not like we've never had stuff happen before. We have, so we'll just live with
all
it.
Okay, stuff, all the time.
So you touched on NLP, and then you're going to touch on PSYCH-K next. So tell us a little bit about that.
So PSYCH-K was developed about 30 years ago by a guy named Dr. Rob Williams. And the way it happens is he learned how to just replace a belief system. So he doesn't even move out the old belief system. He just puts in a new way, a new belief system. And in the process, what you do is you basically cross your left cortex with your right cortex and become into a whole brain state, or you bring your subconscious and conscious mind into an agreement on your new belief. And so I basically work with the client. And so I'm worthy of the very best love and life have to offer. And that's something that I do with somebody who might not have great self-esteem, right?
Mm-hmm, sure.
And so implementing that. And so I go through a process of seeing if their subconscious really believes that or not. Somebody can tell me they believe something, but do they really? And there's a way, you know what I'm saying? People can say to you, oh, yeah, I believe this, but do they really? And you can test through a process if they do. And through doing process, because remember, our left side of our brain controls the right side of our body, and our right side controls our left side. So by making some crosses in your body and then doing another process of putting this balance in, it really does cross your left brain and right brain into a whole brain state on it. So that's why I like to use neurolinguistic programming, ThetaHealing, and even eye movement before I use PSYCH-K. PSYCH-K is the last thing I put in because it almost double locks down anything you're going to do.
Ah, okay. It's kind of like the glue that binds it all together then.
That's how I feel about it. But I'll tell you this, Dr. Bruce Lipton, if anybody knows who he is.
Oh, yeah.
He wrote The Biology of Belief. If you go in the back of that book, if you own it, you'll see that he says PSYCH-K is the fastest, most efficient way to change a self-limiting belief into a self-limitless belief. And he attributes it to why he finished that book and why he has great relationships today.
Very cool. I didn't see that. So I'll have to revisit that in the book. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So we have the NLP at one end. We have the PSYCH-K at the other end. And what were the two in the middle?
ThetaHealing. I use ThetaHealing. ThetaHealing has components of neurolinguistic programming in it. Like they both use a timeline to find out where the behavior first started, that sort of thing. But I like ThetaHealing when I have somebody who's been used to meditating, because we both go into a meditative state. We pull energy from above through us, and I push my energy through them and go through there. And so we're working together using energy. And
Theta state is a meditative state, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, we both go through a meditative state, and I can go in, find where it is, remove it in their timeline, and then heal it. And then I always use PSYCH-K in the end.
Okay. And then what was the fourth one again?
Eye movement integration. Eye movement integration is amazing. It is used for people who have trauma or if they have anxiety, that sort of thing. And so in a conversation, you could talk about it and then have them think about the event that happened. And just by having you watch my fingers, right, and cross over like this, right, and then like this, and then kind of going like that in front of somebody's eyes and stretching it, you can you can desensitize. So they'll remember the trauma, but they won't have the feeling of it anymore. And so when you actually move your fingers and you're going back and forth and you're going in an infinity symbol or you're up and down and that sort of thing, you're basically crossing the left cortex with the right cortex. And see, they're fighting over healing. So the logical side says, I know how to heal this brain from trauma. And the right side says, no, you don't. I'm creative. I know how to, heal this. And so they bounce off. But when you do eye movement integration, they combine and they go, okay, we know how to heal it now. And they call it the inner healer. And I have to say, my clients that I use this on in one session feel 90% better. So it does work. It's amazing. I think it's also, there's another name for it, EMDR. People use that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's funny that you mentioned this because the guest I had on yesterday, his name is Dr. Vic Manzo. He's been on previously as well. And one of the comments he made is that your eyes are your connection to your brain.
Yes.
And literally here you are describing a process that takes advantage of that connection. So thank you for like drawing a couple dots together. That was really cool.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. It really does work. It's pretty amazing.
It is. It sounds very amazing. So those four things helped you to basically overcome programming that you had picked up epigenetically. You picked it up generationally. That's the way I like to say it.
Yes.
From prior generations. And I know in my own case, I have my own generational stuff I've had to deal with and I'm still dealing with. In my own case, it was also money related in that I had one family member after another who either would fail in business or would end up being, there's no nice way to say it, being a business criminal.
Okay.
Usually very light level, not heavy duty fraud, but
right.
Like slumlord level. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Because my grandfather literally was a slumlord, and I for the longest time didn't really think that any of that could actually affect me until it actually did.
Yes.
Apparently it can. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And then trying to overcome it can be a real challenge. So that's why I'm very curious about what you're talking about here, because you use this on yourself to overcome that programming. So tell us a little bit about that part of the journey.
I've actually used 200 balances on myself from PSYCH-K.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Deprogramming anything religious is really hard. And it's really ingrained. And I came from a family my dad was a minister. Mm-hmm. So it's like I came from all of this and to understand it. And it's not bashing religion. I love all different faiths. I think there's validity in everything, but you have to see how any programming is really affecting you in your life.
Right.
And so it can be painful. I mean, I really had to be honest with myself and the beliefs that I had that were so strong, that were built into me. I had to say, okay, why is this you? Do you really believe this? Or is this your mom? Or is this your dad? Or is this society? And one of the biggest things I had was fear. My mom worried about 99.9% of stuff that was never going to happen. My grandmother had the same thing. And so one day, and this was before I discovered all the techniques, I was playing around and I said, because I'm energy based, so I was already in quantum physics. So I thought, what if I take the word fear and put it in a bubble and attach it to me? And every time I feel fear in any sort of way or worry, I'm going to cut it away from me in my mind. And I'm going to put safety, security, and confidence in that bubble and attach it to me.
Ah.
I did this repeatedly for 1 week. After 1 week, I went out, I had something happen. I was outside and a situation happened that normally I would have reacted this way with worry, and all of a sudden I was going this way. And it was like I was watching the whole scene like slow motion, and I go, whoa, what just happened? I had made the switch. I had finally made the switch after 1 week of repeatedly doing this.
And not only had you made the switch, but you had been able to notice that you had made the switch. You could actually detect it.
Yes. Yes. And in neurolinguistic programming, they call that a paradigm shift. So it's like when you hang on to you see everything through a certain belief system. And when you change that belief system, you're changing the reality. You're changing your reality, both personally and professionally. And who wouldn't want to do that? It's kind of like the person who, we all know the people who date the same type of person over and over and over again.
Oh, yeah.
Same thing happens, or the same money issues happen over and over again. It's because they haven't changed the way they see reality. They haven't changed that part of behavior in them. But once you change it across the board, it's changed. And you have, so instead of going this way, now you're going that way.
Right.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to experience.
It's probably a very freeing experience when it happens that dramatically. I would call that a dramatic change because you noticed it first of all, and secondly, not only did you notice it just from the way you're describing it, it impacted you strongly. And so that makes it a big change. That makes it, whoa, very dramatic.
It was, whoa. It was literally like watching slow motion. And in quantum terms, we call that quantum jumping. Everybody quantum jumps. They just don't know it. But in the quantum world, that's what we call it.
We've actually talked about that in the past. And I remember a conversation, this is going back a year or two, in which we were kind of sharing experiences, not directly related to this kind of a healing, but more just generic experiences that we could describe as quantum jumping. And literally about a day or two after that episode, I found myself out driving, and all of a sudden I was in a different place. And I said, what just happened?
Yeah.
It wasn't a dramatically different place. It was like 5 minutes further down the road than I should have been. Mm-hmm. But it happened instantly. And I said, no, I know I was just back there. I know I was.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing.
It's crazy stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It does get your attention. That's for sure. Yeah. So, okay. Well, it got your attention. What'd you do with it?
Yeah. I just knew it's like you said, I was free. So it was after that, and I continued doing my study because I knew that our mind, our subconscious, had a lot to do with our reality and how we create a reality. And so I just kept studying, and I wanted to change everything about me, because if I could change that, I could change other belief systems I had. And this is the thing that people don't understand. When you change your belief system, you're elevating your consciousness. And when we elevate our consciousness, so when I made that change, my children are part of my DNA. So energetically, my children are part of me. So when I change that energy in me, I'm changing that energy theoretically in them. Mm. That goes a little deeper, but it's true. Wow. And so I think it was Tao that said something to the point where the greatest gift that you can give is the transformation of oneself, because it affects everyone.
Now it becomes a literal thing. It's not just a metaphor anymore.
No.
Right.
No. Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
I could keep going. I will keep going. But Alex, do you have anything going on that you want to bring up here from what you're hearing from Janet?
Yeah. Question. So say someone has this belief that if they didn't have bad luck, they had no luck at all. Like we've all said that. So what steps do you take to get rid of that belief?
Oh, well, I would go in and see where the belief first started. Mm-hmm. That's very key, is to find out where it first started. And then basically you move it out. You move that through the process of neurolinguistic programming or ThetaHealing. You move it out. Mm-hmm. And then with PSYCH-K, I go through a process of, first of all, I put in a balance. They call them balances. I put in a balance or a belief that PSYCH-K works on you first. Mm-hmm. And then through that, I will go through the process of testing the person, and we'll put in a new balance, a positive balance, that I have an abundant mindset. I have great luck all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, or isn't it wonderful? Something marvelous is happening to me right now.
Right. I love that one.
And when you put that in, it locks in.
Mm-hmm.
It just locks in. And, you know, most of my clients, I keep a metrics. So I have my clients write me back because I always want to know how they're doing too. And I just got an email last week from somebody that I gave they had a session about 2.5 weeks ago, and they wrote me this whole long thing. This is unbelievable. This has changed. This has changed. This has changed. This has changed. And it was only, I did maybe 5 balances in him, and he started to see the change. I had one client I hadn't heard from after a month. And so I wrote her and I said, how's it going? She goes, I'm so sorry. I've been so busy. This is the most abundant month I've ever had. She had abundance blocks. She put a limitation on her abundance. In other words, when it comes to money conscious and abundance, well, abundance, I'm going to say this to the audience, abundance is in every area of your life. So don't just limit yourself to money. You want ultimate abundance across the board. You want health, you want wealth, you want success, friendships, everything. You want it all. That's ultimate abundance. But she had kind of a ceiling. So it's kind of like if somebody thinks $500 is a ton of money, but they want 1,000. Well, if your ceiling is at 500, you may get the 1,000, but you're going to lose it because you have this level of you don't go past that ceiling, and so it's moving that block out. It's moving that whatever's holding you from that ultimate success.
So it's literally like removing the ceiling.
Yeah, it's limitless. I tell people, be the student of your life. Sit down and go through the painful thing like I did. The painful thing is if you feel really strongly about a belief, okay, I can get that. But where'd it come from? Is it really you? Or is it your mom's? Is it your ancestors? Is it society's? Where'd you get the belief? Because it's okay if it's truly you. But if it's a self-limiting belief, you really want to examine that. But then at the same point, know that you're also the scientist and you're in the laboratory and that it's limitless. It's limitless of what you want. So you can keep going. So in PSYCH-K, if I do a balance, and let's say you do a balance for the $1,000, right? The $1,000, you can change that and you can make it $1 million. So you can change your viewpoint that you want, like ultimate success in certain areas. You can change that to ultimate success across the board. You can change it to different things. And it does affect your mindset. It's like having an athlete that's really good. And once you move the block of holding them to really good to be great, they'll be great. They will be great. We block our own selves.
True that.
Yeah, we do. We're good at that.
We are.
We have a lot of skill.
It's easier to program the bad stuff or the negative stuff than it is to program the positive. And so, but once you make the switch to programming positive, then isn't it wonderful? Something marvelous is happening to me right now. You know,
I'm curious to know your take on this though, because we've all of us, I think, have identified what you just said at one point or another. It's easy to do the stuff that's not good for us or not happy or not fun or, working against us. Why is it so easy? That's the part that I always like to investigate a little further. Why is that? Why is the other one the hard one?
Because I believe that it's kind of like watching the news. It's always, we don't hear as many great things. I have to believe there's a ton of wonderful things happening in this world that we don't even know about.
Yeah, you'll never find out by listening to a newscast, that's for sure.
Because you'll never, and so we've been conditioned as society. Way back, we've been conditioned to have this ingrained in us. So this is a very hard thing for our society in general, since it's not just your ancestors and my ancestors. It's across the board. So it is a very deep-seated thing.
Which leads to the other thought that I keep thinking about anytime the topic of epigenetics comes up, which is, yeah, we're connected to our ancestors, but we are all energetically connected to each other. So
this is true.
You could basically just take this out about a million more levels beyond that. Just, forget about the ancestors. You got a whole society of people that you're living with. That's
exactly right. That's why I say that. It's the whole society is programmed this way. But once we start, it's one person at a time. So once we start reprogramming to go to that positive, it's literally, I call it elevating consciousness one person at a time. And I'm fine with that, because that means that's one more person that's elevating somebody else's consciousness. And that's a beautiful thing.
In my own way, that's what I do with the podcast. I subtitle it Your Daily Dose of Happy. If everybody comes out feeling better at the end, yes, another victory. I love it.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Yeah. So that gives us the lay of the land, so to speak. So you discovered the stuff. You basically reprogrammed yourself using what you had learned. You started helping other people, which fit in nicely with what had always been a lifelong thing, because you wanted to help people who needed the help. What happened next?
Well, I'm still doing it. I'm still there.
That's what I'm trying to get to.
I'm still there. I'm still helping people. I'm still working. I have clients. It's funny because my clients first expanded from, I went from, just regular everyday people to then CEOs to then entrepreneurs to now I have everyone. I also have a scholarship fund for people. So I just do it all. I serve everything across the board. So I even go into business management teams, because if you think, they all come from an epigenetic background, different backgrounds, right? But if I can get them to recognize that, so they understand where the person's coming from, so now they have this strategy that they know what everybody's experienced. But if they have like 2 or 3 goals that the management team has, through PSYCH-K, we can balance them all on the same goal without changing their epigenetic background. And that's pretty cool.
That's cool. Very great. Yeah. I mean, all you're describing sounds cool. So
that's pretty cool.
This is enjoyable stuff. So I'm now going to take it away from the generic, and we're going to make it personal. I'm going to bring it about me. This is all about me now, folks. Okay. So I mentioned earlier how I have these issues from my own family line and so forth. I figure this is kind of a good way to describe how you actually apply this kind of stuff. Now I've done a lot of work on myself since I realized what these issues were. I've been through one really great program called the ThetaHealing program that helped quite a bit too. I still find that it tends to pop up, and it still pops up in surprising ways. So I was wondering if you could kind of address, why is it that when we do all this work on ourselves, it doesn't really get us to the point that we need to get to, and why is it that these techniques you use actually bridge the gap?
Because there's a certain amount of conditioning. I will say this. I believe that the quantum world, or even if you want to call it all that is, the universe, whatever, I do believe we're tested to see if this is what you really believe. Do you really believe this? I'm going to throw this in your way. Do you really believe that? I'm going to throw that in your way. How are you going to handle that? So you may have fixed it in a certain circumstance. You may have fixed it here or there, but to fix it across the board, it has to do, it's kind of like what I did with the fear. I had to fix it across the board. I just couldn't fix it in just certain circumstances. And that's why it pops up, because we're only doing, we do it in that circumstance. Okay, well, now I have a new circumstance, so I'm going to fix it in that circumstance so that doesn't happen. So you just kind of piecemeal it. But when you go into something like PSYCH-K and you do it across the board, well, now you're not even having that vibration, so you're not even bringing it to you anymore.
So that raises the question, what is it about any of these? Well, you mentioned PSYCH-K, so we'll go there. What is it about PSYCH-K that enables it to make a repair across the board? What's the across the board portion of it?
The across the board means that your subconscious and conscious mind, or your left and right cortex, are in total agreement in any circumstance that will not pop up, or that if it does, you can go this way. You won't experience what you experienced before. Whereas when we start to only fix, this is what I was I would say this about a paradigm. So the simple way to say is, if I'm fearful of everything, right? But I'm fearful of German Shepherds. And I say, well, I'm not going to be fearful of German Shepherds anymore, right? Mm-hmm. And so I don't have fear of German Shepherds. I didn't get rid of the other fear. I just got rid of that one fear. So that's why it starts popping up in other places, because you haven't changed how you see that reality across the board. And once you change that, it's not going to come in anymore. It won't come in anymore. It's kind of like, I had one woman who, what she wanted was that she would have more time in the day. And she said, I want more time in the day to do my projects my creative projects I want to do for work, and more time to do what I want. So we went through 2 balances about time. And she said, this is crazy. She said, in just 10 days, she was doing the stuff she all wanted. She goes, I have enough time to do everything.
Nice.
So it's how it also has to do with the quantum field. And so it's how we create our energy. It's how we create our reality through not only our coding, but also our energy that we put out. Oh, I don't have time. Well, if you say that, if you put those thoughts out there, you're not going to have the time.
Right. Oh, sure. Yeah.
I do that when I'm, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think we all know the theory. I think we understand the theory. It's putting the theory into practice that's where we trip up, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. It's making that first step. I always tell the clients, once you make just one step towards it, you've sealed it in. You make that one step, you've sealed it in all across the board. Just crazy. Takes a simple step. It's like procrastination. That was one of mine. One of mine. Yeah, there were certain things I certain things I didn't procrastinate about, and certain things I did. So I don't address the things that I had procrastination about. I just wanted to address it across the board. Mm-hmm. So I get all my work done in a timely manner. Efficient, timely manner.
But you actually believe it. That to me is the big difference going on here.
Yeah, but when I first started it, I had to take the first step. And so when I took the first step, I said, I don't really want to do, this isn't what I would normally want to do right now, but I'm just going to do it. And I got it done so much faster. And then after that, it just rolled out all the time. It's just doing it the first time. This
is a really interesting approach to overcoming resistance points, because that's really what we're talking about, blocks and resistance points. There are lots of different theories. A lot of people have had lots of different successes with different approaches. So there's obviously more than one way to do this kind of thing. But this is a really interesting one. This is a kind of a unique one, because the approach that you're basically saying it point blank. You fix it across the board all at once. Mm-hmm. I know in my own mind there's a piece of me that says, yeah, right.
Well, I do say this. First of all, it's really painful, and you have to be honest with yourself, which most people don't want to do. Mm-hmm. So that's the hardest step, I think. And the other thing is taking the first step. So that first day that I said, okay, this group of paper that I really don't want to have to go through today, am I going to do it? And then I just take the step, and now I don't even think about that stuff. It just kind of, everything gets done, and it's just the way it is.
It just flows.
It just flows. Everything flows. And I think you said it just there. Everything flows. I think if people really understood that once you start doing this process, your life just flows. It really is crazy how it flows. And it's
a neat kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's fun once you start really realizing that you're your own block. And that you can remove it. It's pretty incredible.
Well, plus I would think waking up each morning after having had perhaps years, decades of experience one direction, one paradigm of continuous blocks or limitations, or however you want to express it, and then all of a sudden they're gone, and now all of a sudden you're flowing. That's got to just feel good all by itself. Like every day, it's got to be the experience of, wow, yeah, it still feels good. It felt good yesterday. Mm-hmm. It feels good today. It's going to feel good tomorrow.
The fear thing was the big thing for me, because I didn't want to pass that on to my kids. And so that was a really huge thing for me. And so that day that happened, you were absolutely right. That was probably one of the most liberating days that I've had. Yeah.
I know speaking for myself, anytime that I've achieved any kind of a breakthrough, there are two predominant emotions that I experience. The first one is what we just talked about, the joy of it. The second part is astonishment. It's astonishment not only that it happened, but what's the right adjective to describe it? It's how slight it was. I just got a big difference compared to what I used to get, but what actually shifted was such a small shift.
Small but mighty. Small but mighty.
Right.
Yeah.
Big impact.
Small but mighty.
There should be a third feeling that goes with it. And I think the third feeling should be pride. You should be proud of yourself for getting through that and accomplishing that goal.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it is an accomplishment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm humbled a little bit by the work I do. It makes me feel really happy that I can assist people and be in service in such a way to help them live the best life that they can possibly live, the most successful life. So for me, I add that one in too. It's an honor and I'm humbled by the people that come to me.
It's really the ultimate expression of job satisfaction.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Matter of fact, a couple of my children, I have 3, but 2 of them said, I think my hobby is this, because I'm always researching. My hobby's this, and I love my work, so my work is my hobby. And I go, really? And they go, don't you want? And I go, no, I really love this. I really do. So
that's fabulous. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
They talk about trying to find your purpose in life. You found your purpose.
I did by accident. I did. It was waiting for me, knocking on my head, kind of the hard way, but grateful.
Well, congratulations on getting there without the 2x4. That's always helpful.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think the whole money issue was a little painful.
Well, maybe there was a 2x4 after all.
And some other things. And this is the other thing I'd say to people is our superconscious mind is there. And I teach my clients this, and I'll just briefly touch on it. Your superconscious mind is amazing if you'll just listen to it, because it will help you in so many different ways. So just open yourself up to listening to that voice, because that soul part of you, it won't let you down.
It's an interesting topic, an interesting point, because we've talked about it a lot here on the show, largely because of my own struggles trying to learn how to even find that voice, how to even notice that it was there. And I finally have been able to learn over time to get it, at least some of the time. But I even get feedback from listeners. Just yesterday, we had a listener, we were having a conversation about something, I forget what, and there was someone listening in on the live stream. And she said, "Oh, are you doing readings?" And I said, "No, we aren't doing readings here. Neither one of us really feel like we have that level of connection." And she commented, "Oh, yeah, I can't get anything inside." And I kept thinking to myself, that's exactly what my experience was. And I told her point blank, "Yeah, I get it, but keep doing the work on yourself. You can get there eventually." But that's a big deal. This is a big deal. People hear all the time how important it is to make that connection to what you're calling your super conscious. I mean, there's lots of ways of labeling it, but if you have trouble doing it, it's a big deal.
I can give them a simple tip, and I do this for some people. Write down what it is. This is what you could do. What is it that Walt needs to know today? Right? So you just write that on a piece of paper. And so when you get up in the morning, before you look at your phone, before you look at anything else, go sit down with that paper, take a deep breath in, maybe even 4, and then read it. And then write down the first things that come. Don't argue with it.
Very good.
Just don't argue with it. It may sound funny. It may sound simplistic or whatever. Just write it down. And then read it back after. Because when you first get up, you're still so connected. And just sit down, read that, and write it. I actually do this before I meet with a client so that I know what the client's coming for. And it never fails me. I mean, I'll sit there. I had this one gentleman, he was coming, he was referred to me, and I said, what is it that so-and-so wants today? And they said, he doesn't know why he's coming, but it's to elevate his consciousness. So just trust and go with it. So I'm like, okay, that was just really funny. Whereas I've had other ones that say, oh, this is their relationship, or they're like, and a lot of times when it says why they're there, I'll say, no, I don't really want to say that. I don't want to. And sure enough, it's always on the money. So I would suggest to people to just start out doing that, because they'll connect. You know, the more and more you do it, the more and more you'll connect. And it's simple.
That's a very cool concept, a very cool practice, actually, is what I meant to say, of just, like you said, just have that question and then ask yourself the question and just write down whatever comes, because what you're really doing is you're bypassing your conscious thinking mind, which is exactly what you need to do. And I can tell you point blank how it is I first really successfully started to do anything like that. I did it here on the podcast.
Oh, wow.
Because I've been doing this podcast.
That's awesome.
It'll be 10 years in September. And after the first 4 or 5 years, I mean, most of the time early on, it was all about law of attraction. Now we touch on it, periodically, but it's not a big deal at this point. But back then, the whole show was always about law of attraction. And I had a co-host who was doing the show regularly with me, and we covered so much over that 4 or 5 year period. And I felt like I was really grasping the whole thing. I wasn't successfully applying it necessarily, but I was grasping it. I was learning how to work on myself and stuff like that. And then we reached a point where there was one show where something happened that had not happened before. We had a lag in the conversation. Now, up until that point, there was always like the next question that came to me. Okay, I need to focus on this. I know that the audience want to hear this as well, blah, 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 blah. But all of a sudden we had this lag, and I didn't really know what to do about it. And the only thing that I could think of to do was I kept recalling different conversations I'd had with him and with some others about how you just let it bypass your conscious mind. So I said, well, I don't know what to do right now, so I'm just going to open my mouth and see if anything comes out. And so I opened my mouth, kind of afraid, to be perfectly honest, because I mean, I'm recording the podcast, right? What do I do? Do I go and edit out this blank space afterward? I didn't know what was going to happen. But I opened my mouth and words started to come out. It was kind of stumbling and kind of halting at first, but words started to come out. And after about 20 seconds of what felt like babbling, my co-host responded coherently. I said, what did I just say? I had no idea what I just said. It was one of the rare times I actually went back and did something I never do. I almost never listened to my own episodes, but I did in that case because I wanted to find out, did it make sense? Was I actually saying anything that made sense? Mm-hmm. And when I played it back, to my astonishment, it did make sense.
Yeah.
And I was kind of surprised, like, wow. And so since then, I have learned more and more often to just let it flow like that. If I get to a point in an interview or just a conversation, we're talking about a topic or whatever, I'm not sure what to say next, open the mouth and wait for stuff to come out. And it always comes out. So that's how I actually first got into the mode of just how do you receive something and express it? How do you get it out there? Yeah.
That's awesome. You know, I've had that happen to me in podcasts too. I'm like, wow, did I say that? That sounded, I don't remember saying that, but good for you. You said that. So I totally get it. I always just say, just let it flow. It's just going to flow.
In fact, the part that amazes me the most is when I have a guest on, and I'm having guests now almost every show now. And I have a guest on and I ask a question, and it's perhaps a long-winded question. And at the end of the question, I pose the actual question and they come back with, wow, that's a really great question. And the first thought that goes to my mind is, what did I just ask?
Wow.
And then I play back and I find it actually was a pretty good question, but like, I don't know where that came from.
That's beautiful. It's so fun. Literally our higher consciousness, if we can just let it flow, we'd be so much happier.
I think I
feel like I've been in touch with my connection for a longer time than I thought now that we're having this conversation. Because I used to have this thing where I would notice things and then they would be presented to me throughout the day. Like, so, okay, for example, I used to work at Sally's. Sally's is a hair store, so you can buy your hair care products there. And I would start the shift in the morning and I'd have to like walk around the store, make sure everything's as it should be and whatever. And then all of a sudden I'd be like, oh, that's a new product. Wonder what that's for. And I'll look at it. whatever. Never fails. Later on in that day, somebody will come in and ask me for a product that does that certain thing. And I'll be like, you know what? This is what you need right here. And then I'll never see it again, never hear about it again. But that day I will see that product. And that happens to me all the time. It's so weird.
That's awesome. That's beautiful.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
That right there is what it's all about. That's also how, not to bring law of attraction in, but that's also how you manifest is kind of what you're talking about. You can manifest.
I'm good at that. Yes.
Yes. It's going to move faster and faster. I don't know if you know that, but, especially when you elevate in consciousness, your manifestation abilities or manifesting abilities move faster and faster.
Right.
Well, I think we've also experienced it in a number of different ways, not just manifesting, but I think many people, regardless of whether they're even, quote, enlightened, unquote, just notice time seems to be speeding up. It's a common thing that people talk about all the time. And that's really what they're talking about. They're talking about their energy rising, but they don't know it.
That's great. I haven't heard that analogy, but that's really awesome.
It's true. I mean, that's what's actually happening, you know.
It is.
Now they do tend to fret about it, and they tend to get into a state, and you know, so they go off the rails a bit. But nevertheless, what originally happened was somehow they went up a level, and they didn't even know they went up a level. All of a sudden, everything just started to go faster.
I always call it leveling up. Sometimes leveling up can be really uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, when somebody says, oh, it's kind of icky, I'm like, oh yeah, you're getting ready to go through that ceiling to the next elevation in consciousness. And that can be also painful. Yeah, it can. A little bit. Yeah.
It doesn't have to be. Sometimes it's
No, sometimes it's awesome. Sometimes it's just like, whoa, I just floated into that. And sometimes it's, as somebody who's gone through it, on money consciousness, it can be painful.
Yeah, sure. That's quite understandable, especially dependent upon how heavily oriented toward the money limitations you are. That can be really painful.
Yeah. No
doubt about that.
Yeah.
This is great. I'm realizing we're kind of running a little bit low on time here. We're down to, although perhaps if we took one of your sessions, we might be able to expand the time. But nevertheless, we're still dealing with a little linear time right now. We have about 7 minutes left. So let's work with those 7 minutes. Before I forget about it, tell people a little bit more about how to get a hold of you about your Reprogramming for Success program. And how do they reach out to you in general, too? Because I want to make sure that we include that before we run out of time.
Well, they can reach out to me through my website, which is janetelaneschmidt.com. So they can definitely get a hold of me that way. Okay. And if you're interested in reprogramming for success, if you're an individual, we can design that for you. If you're a company, I have a workshop that I put together for groups. So it doesn't matter how many people there are. It's a straight fee. Mm-hmm. And so that's how they can get a hold of me, just through my website or assistant@janetelaneschmidt.com is the email.
Okay. I'll make sure we'll include a link to the website in the show notes as well, so people will have a nice, easy way to get there. We try to make it easy whenever we can. Let's talk just a little bit about the program itself, the Reprogram for Success. First of all, the title kind of says it all, I think, that you're reprogramming yourself. But you said that you do it both on a one-to-one basis and on a group basis for like a business setting.
Right.
Okay. But it's all directly working with you, right?
It's all directly working with me. Yeah. It's not something that you just go off on your own and do. I do give homework. I will say that. I always give homework. It's really important for people to understand, if you come to me, I'm going to give you homework. Mm-hmm. But I will give everybody one tip. If you're into affirmations and you're into that sort of thing, please record it in your own voice. Like if you like something that somebody's saying, take it and re-record it in your own voice. Because this is the thing. When you're in your mother's womb, you recognize your mom's voice. When you're birthed, you're like, whoa, there's mom, right? So it's the same thing with our soul. When we listen to a recording of our own voice, we're like, the soul goes, whoa, that's me. And I find that it soaks in twice as fast than in an affirmation. And people need to understand that unless you're playing an affirmation over and over and over again, like for 30, 40 days, it's only going to soak in 30% of the time. So please record it in your own voice. It will be magic.
Thank you. You answered a question I've had for a long time, because I've asked that of other people in the past. Does it matter whether it's in your own voice? And I got mixed answers on it. You just gave the most coherent answer I've ever heard. So thank you.
Yeah. I mean, really, if you think about it, you're in your mom's womb. You hear her voice. Your birth, you recognize it. Your soul is the same way. It's going to recognize your voice because you're speaking all the time. So then when you record it, it's like magic. I mean, I myself listen to my own voice say, I have 44 belief systems, 44 things in my belief system.
Wow.
And then I have some other things I do. And I listen to it in the morning when I first get up, and I listen to it right before I go to bed every night.
Okay. Okay.
And
I never thought to do that.
Yeah, because if you listen to it right before you go to sleep, I literally listen to it right before I go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And that quote that I say, isn't it wonderful? Something marvelous is happening to me right now.
Yeah.
I say that over and over again for 5 minutes, and I listen to it morning and night. So
Very cool.
it's that phrase for me is magical.
Well, sure. If you got that one programmed in, if you're going to pick one, you might as well pick one that has that power
Right?
to it.
Yeah.
Very good.
So,
I also love the fact that you don't do like electronic courses. Not that there's anything wrong with electronic courses. I'm not bashing courses. That's what a lot of people offer. A lot of coaches, a lot of teachers, and so forth. They have work at your own pace type courses, usually video based or something like that. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I love the fact that you make it a point to always be directly involved with the people you're helping. And I just want to give you credit for that. I think that's really important.
oh, thank you. For me, it is one-on-one, or because even when you're working with companies or even a group, like the workshop, I take them through many different steps, and I give them about 4 different tools that they can use. If they want to go through PSYCH-K, it's something we have to do separate. It's not something that you do in a group setting.
Yeah.
Everything from Neurolinguistic programming, some of that, some of ThetaHealing, some of eye movement, I can do in a group setting. But PSYCH-K is really private because, especially like if you think about it, in a management group, you don't want people who see that they test strong or weak or whatever.
Right.
I don't even tell the head of the management team who tested what. I just get them all balanced on the same goal, because that's why I'm there, is to help go on the same goal, not to say the other stuff. And I keep it all confidential. But
Sure.
when it's somebody who comes to me, it's really what they wish for in their life, the positive, because I only do positive things for people. And so it's something that they wish for in their life. So we design it together. So that's why you work one-on-one, because it's pretty hard to just, somebody else has asked me, can't you just put this? And I said, no, because everybody's different and everybody's energy is different. So it's getting their vibration on the level of because that's also what it is, getting their light vibration on a level of what they want to achieve and do. So when I'm working with somebody individually, I don't always say this, but I'm also energetically projecting my energy to the person, whether they're linear or they're creative.
Okay.
And so for a linear person, for a linear person, I might disclose it. I might do it differently than I would for a creative person. So I design it depending on the person so that we can achieve what they wish to achieve, the success that they wish to achieve. And that's not something you can package.
Right.
You have to do it on an individual basis.
And we're out of time, so I can't really go into any more of it, but I'll just say I love the fact that you also have, I think you call it a scholarship program. So basically people without means can also reach out to you. They don't have to be afraid of a fee. That's really important. So thank you for doing that as well. That's really
well, it's kind of goes back to my imprinting, which I never got rid of that.
If it serves you, why would you?
I thought it was a gift.
Yeah.
So that part it was my gift.
That's beautiful. Well, thank you for taking this time to share all this great stuff with us and to tell your story and to tell about the experiences that have come out of that story. This has been really very valuable for all of us. So thank you. And thank you for what you do. Thank you for the work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you, Walt and Alex, for having me on, because I really enjoyed the conversation. And it's great to have people that have a little bit knowledge of everything that I speak about. So that was fun too.
Excellent. Another daily dose of happy achieved. We love it.
Yes.
So thank you guys much. Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.